City Council to order.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
The City of Barrie acknowledges the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, which include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We also acknowledge the Wendat Nation Huron, who occupied these lands prior to the middle of the 17th century. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land. We're committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. You may be seated. Well, welcome to Barrie City Council. On behalf of Council and the City, I'm sorry we got started a little bit late. We got into meetings around 4 p.m. And they've run about a half an hour past the course of what we expected. So I apologize to those who've joined us this evening for the late start. I would also ask if you're in the audience and you're wearing a hat to please remove it, as we do in the chambers still respect that rule. We're going to move into the confirmation of the minutes. The minutes of the City Council meeting held on June 4th, 2024 have been circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? I'm seeing none, so they are adopted as printed and circulated. We're going to move into awards and recognition. There are two items under awards and recognition this evening. The first is recognition of Barrie's sister city, Saginaw, Michigan. And I would like to call upon co-chairs, Councillor Harris and Mark Simcoe of the International Relations Committee to the podium for the presentation. So I will ask you and Mark there to jump to the committee now. Jump to the podium. Now I'm going to explain what you're wearing and why you're wearing it. We went to Saginaw a few weeks ago to sign the Sister City Agreement. At that time, the Memorial Cup was being held in Saginaw, Michigan, and Saginaw was into the finals a couple of days before we had left, and we made a commitment that we were going to support them over was it London, right? Who was Oshawa, London. And in the end, I said if they won, I would wear the Saginaw Spirit jersey at City Council one night. But they sent us one not made for a body such as mine. And so Councillor Harris is wearing the jersey this evening, but I'll turn it over to the two of you to make the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and there's one on the way for you that will fit. Good evening, Mayor Nuttall, councillors, city staff, and all of you attending. We had the pleasure to do our fifth Sister City signing 3 weeks ago, and the International Relations Committee worked with Invest Barrie to complete this task. So the question is, why Saginaw? and why International Relations Committee? The committee's efforts in organizing exchanges, facilitating dialogue, and promoting mutual understanding are the backbone of the International Relations Committee and its initiatives. Barrie has a rich history in fostering city-sister relationships. We now have 5. Our first was Zweibrücken, Germany. Our second, Murayama, Japan. Our third, Harrogate, UK, which is our namesake Barrie, and for the reason for that, and Arras, France. And establishing a partnership with Saginaw was particularly exciting. With the signing of the 2023 trade agreement between the state of Michigan and the province of Ontario, and connections made through the Ontario Trade Office, the City of Barrie's International Relations Committee was presented with an opportunity to explore a sister city relationship with the City of Saginaw in Michigan. This partnership emerged at a perfect time, as the committee was laying new foundations and prioritizing economic ties with international cities. Michigan State is Ontario's largest trading partner. It's a natural fit. Through the Ontario Trade Office, we were introduced to the City of Saginaw as part of the Greater Tri-Cities region of Central Michigan. Saginaw shares similar economic interests and objectives with Barrie, enhancing the potential benefits of this relationship. This partnership marks the first sister city relationship in North America for both cities, adding to Barrie's rich history of fostering international connections. The proximity of the two cities will enable frequent visits and foster collaboration in sectors such as advanced manufacturing, health and life sciences, and tourism. And now over to you, Councillor Harris.
Great, thank you, Mark. And there's no way of winning here, so my back is to you, so I apologize for that. Further to what Mark was sharing, from May 29th to May 31st, a delegation from the city in the International Relations Committee visited Saginaw, Michigan to familiarize ourselves with our partners and to sign the Sister City Agreement. And I just want to recognize those who attended with us. Our delegation included Mayor Alex Nuttall, Deputy Mayor Robert Thompson, Committee Chair Mark Satskew, myself, and IRC committee members Al Jones, Wayne Hay, Colin Hassey, and Jamie Massey could not make it, but he was part of that effort, and Georgian College President Kevin Weaver, and the lead of their international student relations, Lisa Buchanan. And we were greeted by an incredible host group from Saginaw, led by Mayor Brenda Moore, who we can't wait to have Mayor Moore up to Barrie. So we're excited, and also members of their city council were there. And also a really key member was John Kaczynski from the Saginaw Valley State University, and Tom Miller from their Saginaw Futures, which is their economic development agency. So again, some really great opportunities from both the educational and business side that represented through having Georgian College there, and there were some really great conversations. And on top of the Saginaw Valley State, we also had a great tour with Central Michigan University, has a medicine campus there where they have incredible simulators. So some members got to do some simulation, but it was really interesting to see how they were combining physician training with nurse training and team training around surgery, and how there might be some synergies for the efforts here locally with our college. We also visited some of their key areas, some of the things that they're trying to do to revitalize Saginaw. Interesting history, they were once 100,000 population, they're now at 50. But I think, and we also got to go to the Memorial Cup game where Saginaw lost, unfortunately, to London, but they obviously managed that win on Sunday to become the Memorial Cup champions later on that week. But it was great to see the city and all the similarities, a history of manufacturing, and that history has been rewritten, and now they're trying to rebuild with health and education in different sectors. And so that was really interesting, because Barrie, you know our history with our manufacturing sector and many of those companies leaving. And also young people and trying to create affordable housing and make housing affordable. Lack of trades. So there were a lot of similarities between our communities. and also the spirit. Everybody we met had this incredible spirit about the future and the opportunities that Saginaw had ahead of them, and it really aligned nicely. And there was lots of synergies that were coming out from the day. So we're really excited. And next steps, we'll be hosting our Saginaw partners in the fall. So we look forward to bringing them back to show them Barrie, and they're very excited to see Barrie, particularly the work we've done around our lakeshore and with our partners. So it's really exciting. I think from all of the delegates who attended, they saw the potential. And one thing, and Mark alluded to, with the National Relations Committee, we're really looking for this iteration to focus on the economic opportunities, to bring business into this fold. And so we thank Invest Barrie and Ms. Schlichter and her team. It's really been a great kind of rebirth of the IRC. And so we look forward to our Saginaw partners coming here in the fall. And thank you, everybody on council, for your support. We think we've got an exciting new partner, and we think really the proximity and familiarity would be really interesting because, as Mark noted, everybody that we have on our sister city list to date is across the pond. Many, many hours of flights away, but this creates that opportunity to have more exchanges, to do more things because, again, they're right there, only a few hours drive away. So thank you for your time, and we have something that was presented to us, to the City of Barrie, and I'll hand over to Mark.
So in the spirit of the get-together, they presented us with this absolutely gorgeous laser-engraved Great Lakes map. And on the bottom here is Barrie and then Saginaw, and it shows all of the area in between and all our communities. This was presented to Mayor Nuttall there, but I just felt it was important that you see that And this, of course, will be hung with gifts from our other sister cities, but I think it was really important that you got to see. And when they return, we have a gorgeous print of Sir Robert Barrie, and we will have it framed lovely for them, and we'll be presenting them with our Sir Robert Barrie. So thank you very much for your time and cooperation.
Mark and Councillor Harris, I just want to take a quick opportunity to say thank you for the work that you're doing on behalf of the city and the international relations, as well as Deputy Mayor Thompson and the entire committee. I know that there's been a lot of movement forward, and if we have friends like Mayor Moore, I think it makes life a lot better. You'll all understand that when Mayor Moore comes to visit us in a few months. She is got a ton of personality and is incredibly sharp and a wonderful person to spend time with. So thank you again for taking the time to go down there and away from your families, away from work, and doing business on behalf of the city. We have a second presentation this evening, and this is recognition of former City Councilor Rose Romita in receiving a special Royal Canadian Air Force Centennial coin for her 20 years of commitment and dedication to Barrie residents. I would like to now call upon 16 Wing Commander Gabriel Doré and 16 Wing Chief Warrant Officer Jeff Ruscani from the Canadian Air Force's Base Borden to the podium for the presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Your Worship, council members, and citizens of Barrie for allowing us a few minutes here. I won't take as long as the group before us. But it is an important recognition that we're making. I will note that I'm representing the Commander of the Air Force, Lieutenant General Kenny, today, and Chief Warrant Officer Hall, who have decided, as part of the Centennial of the Air Force, to mint 100 coins. So there's only 100 of them that have been made. The wings, the different wings across the country have been given some of them. 16 Wing got 7 of them. And because we're a dispersed wing with operations in Nova Scotia and in Cornwall as well, 4 of them are going to the local communities around Barrie, Borden. And one of them was nominated by members on my staff to be going to Mrs. Romita for the outstanding work in the community that she's been doing over the years, feeding countless people in need over the years, That work has not gone unnoticed on top of your different business ventures and your service to the community as a council member for many years. You are the epitome of the RCF values, loyalty. I need to write them so I don't forget those. I need to get those right. Loyalty, integrity, excellence, and inclusion in everything you do. Thank you very much for your service to your community, and thank you very much again to the City of Barrie for allowing us the chance to present to you this in front of the City Council here today, in front of the citizens of Barrie. And if somebody will please do me a favor and take pictures of us, because it's not real until it's on Facebook. We will present you this amazing coin that you will be one of 100 Canadians to receive this year.
Wow, thank you so much.
All right. This is yours.
Thank you so much. I do have a few words, if that's okay with you. I have a few words of thanks. Dear members of Royal Canadian Air Force and honored guests, I am deeply honored and grateful to receive one of the 100 medals for 100 people from the Royal Canadian Air Forces for my charity work. This recognition is truly humbling and serves as a reminder of the impact that collective efforts can have on our communities. I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation for the Royal Canadian Air Forces for this prestigious honor. It is a privilege to be recognized among such distinguished group of individuals who are committed to making a positive difference in the world. I am grateful for the opportunity to contribute to meaningful causes throughout the charity work, and I am inspired by the generosity and compassion of all those who support these efforts. This medal not only represents my work, but also the dedication and support from the countless individuals and the contributions for the success of my charitable initiatives. As we celebrate this milestone for 100 years of the Royal Canadian Air Forces, I am reminded of the values and service and commitment and selflessness of that define the spirit and esteemed organization. It is an honor to be associated with such a legacy of excellence and dedication. I accept this medal with deep gratitude and renewed commitment to continue on making a positive effort throughout my charity. Thank you to the Royal Canadian Air Force for this honor, and thank you all for those who have supported me and inspired me along the journey. Together we can create a better future for all. Thank you.
Now, Rose, before you leave, Rose, just one quick second. So, before you leave, you know that the city really loves the work that you've done. You do, respects you, and there's one person who served on council with you for a couple of years, still here. So he wanted to say a couple of words. Councilor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I was just telling Councilor Hamilton, I'm like, Rose Romita's back in the house. I'll be very quick, Rose. And I just literally wrote this while we were presenting to you. Rose, you are selfless. You spend more time helping others than you do on yourself. I know that for a fact. There's not many people that, many people help. There's not many people that can say they've literally given their couch multiple times or space, and that is incredible of you. Yet the most important thing about your work is you inspire others to also help their community, other people who have the resources or the time or the emotional capacity. You say what you mean what you say, and whether on Barrie City Council or the over 27 now years in Barrie, the City of Barrie is a better city because of it. So congratulations, Rose.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you.
For those of you that aren't aware of the type of work that Rose has done, you know, Thanksgiving, when many of us are cooking for, well, not me, but many people are cooking for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 members of their family, Rose was cooking for literally hundreds of people in the community who wouldn't have had a Thanksgiving dinner, a Christmas dinner, an Easter dinner, and just bringing the community together around that is something that is obviously being recognized by the RCAF and certainly needs to continue to be recognized by the city. So thank you, Rose. Really do appreciate it. We're going to move forward to past reports from officers, deputations, tax applications, and communications, as there are none of any of those. Into committee reports. Deputy Mayor Thompson, I believe you have the motions for our committee reports.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be received.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be received. 24G149, Report of the Affordability Committee dated May 29, 2024. 24G150, Report of the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee dated May 29, 2024. Are there any questions or comments with regards to Section A of the General Committee Reports? I'm seeing none. All those in favor? And it carries unanimously. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton, that Section B of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that Section B of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be adopted. 24G151, 2023 Audited Consolidated Financial Statements. 24G152, Circulation Memorandum concerning this week in Barrie, Legislative Ads in Barrie today. 24G153, Correspondence concerning Site Plan Application 55 to 57 McDonald Street, 61 to 67 Owen Street, and 70 to 78 Worsley Street. 24G154, Correspondence concerning New Lawn Chair Luminata Concert Series. 24G155, Approval of Fleet Asset Management Plan. 24G156, Amendment to the Zoning Bylaw 338 Mapleview Drive East, Ward 9. 24G157, City-Initiated Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application 29 and 35 Sperling Drive, Ward 3. 24G158, Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application 750 Lockhart Road, Barrie, Ward 10. 24G159, Barrie Allendale Transit Terminal Public Art Commission Funding Source, Ward 8. 24G160, Disposition of Land Matter on Sargent Drive. 24G161, Property Acquisition, Hotchkiss Creek Storm Ponds Improvements and Diamonds Creek Pond Improvements in Wards 5 and 8. 24G162, Water Meter Replacement Program. 24G163, Excella Cloud Migration. Are there any questions or comments with regards to the reports of Section B of General Committee? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it carries.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton, that Section C of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that Section C of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be adopted. This is 24G164, Official Plan Amendment and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application for 901 Essa Road and 13579 13 15 17 19 Brown Bear Street in Ward 7. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I have an amendment moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Negussi, that motion 24G164 of Section C of the General Committee Report dated June the 12th, 2024, be amended by deleting the following words from paragraph 3AH of the staff report along the Brown Bear Street frontage. And I can speak to that.
It's moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Negussi, that motion 24G164 of Section C of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024 be amended by deleting the following words from paragraph 3AH of the staff report, quote, along the Brown Bear Street frontage, end quote. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just after the staff report was made public, it was identified, and this is more of a housekeeping issue, because this section speaks about the angular plane of the buildings in relation to roadways, and especially when you're looking at the expansion and widening of Essa Road. The final design of that hasn't been completed at this point, so it's actually almost impossible to actually hold them to a particular angular plane to a road that hasn't been fully designed. I don't know if Ms. Banfield wants to provide anything further that might be a little more detailed than what I'm able to provide.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harvey, I don't have anything to add other than, as I said, it is like a planning technicality, and it will just ultimately provide for a bit more flexibility when the building comes in, just understanding that we don't have that ultimate road width yet.
Thank you. Any questions or comments with regards to the amendment to the main motion? I'm seeing none. All those in favor? It carries on the main motion as amended. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries unanimously. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton, that Section D of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be received.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that Section D of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be received. 24G165, presentation regarding the wastewater operations annual reports. And please see staff member item listed as A5 on the circulation list from June 12, 2024 for this. Are there any questions or comments from members of council with regards to Section D of the General Committee Report? Councillor Kung.
I will just take a moment because we did have some good conversation on this, but did want to highlight while it was in front of us the compliments to staff on this and the research you're doing with Guelph and some really exciting innovation. So do you want to say if members of the public are interested in this, do you take the time to review the video that was played and are accessible, but there's phenomenal work happening there, and from a quality control and public safety, I say thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kungle, and certainly I know all council echoes that, and it was really interesting to hear about some of the opportunities and research that's being done. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton, that Section E of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be adopted.
Just one second. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that Section E of the General Committee Report dated June 12, 2024, now circulated, be adopted. This is 24G166, Zoning Bylaw Amendment 27, 31, 33, 35, 41, and 43 Essa Road, and 259 and 273 Innisfil Street, Ward 8. Are there any questions or comments with regards to the motion? Yes, Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I don't have any amendments, just had a question, and maybe just for clarification. Maybe through you to Ms. Banfield, one thing that had come up for residents, and I know we had corrected an amendment last week, was around the parking. And I wonder if you just, for people, because some people may not have heard that or read that or seen that change around why the parking restriction and why that amendment was made. If you could just give us some description, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Certainly through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harris. So recently, Bill 185 was passed by the provincial government, which restricted the city's ability to require parking in major transit station areas, MTSAs. So while the staff report was done in advance of that legislation, when we knew we had amendments coming, it was proactive on our part to remove that requirement. That does not mean that there won't be parking with the building. It just means that we cannot require it.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. And for those in attendance or at home, this is what I refer to as the former co-op property down at between Innisfil and Essa Road. Are there any other comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it carries unanimously. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated June 19, 2024, be received.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated June 19, 2024, be received. This is 3.1, confidential potential land disposition matter, Sadlin Arena, and FIN 013-24 confidential litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, development charges, appeal mediation, FIN 013-24. Are there any questions or comments with regards to the Section A of General Committee from earlier this evening? Seeing none, all those in favor, and it carries unanimously. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton, that Section B of the General Committee report dated June 19th, 2024 be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that Section B of the General Committee report dated June 19th, 2024 be adopted. This is FIN 013-24, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, development charges, appeal mediation. And again, this is FIN 013-24. Are there any questions or comments with regards to this motion? I'm seeing none. All those in favor? It carries unanimously. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton, that Section C of the General Committee report dated June 19th, 2024 be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that Section C of the General Committee report dated June the 19th, 2024 be adopted. This is the potential land disposition matter, Sadlin Arena. Are there any questions or comments with regards to the motion on the floor? I'm seeing none. All those in favor? It carries unanimously. That concludes our committee reports. We're now going to go past deferred business as there's none into direct motions. The first direct motion that I see here is the Barrie Transit and Simcoe County District School Board High School Pilot Program, moved by Councillor Rietma and seconded by Councillor Nixon. Councillor Rietma, if you could read it out and then pass it over.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Nixon, that staff in the Transit and Parking Strategy Department launch a pilot program in partnership with the Simcoe County District School Board, where students in a predetermined area, as identified in circulation list memo of June 19, 2024, will receive free Barrie Transit passes for the 24-25 school year. Secondly, that the Director of Transit and Parking Strategy or their designate be given delegated authority to adjust the program throughout the school year to ensure the pilot program remains flexible as both the city and the school board work through the pilot program. And thirdly, that staff in the Transit Parking Strategy Department report back to Council with an update after the first semester and after the second semester to share feedback and to determine potential next steps. And I'd be happy to speak to it.
It's moved by Councillor Rietma and seconded by Councillor Nixon, the Barrie Transit and Simcoe County District School Board High School Pilot Program. One, that staff in the Transit and Parking Strategy Department launch a pilot program in partnership with the Simcoe County District School Board, where students in a predetermined area as identified in the circulation list memo of June 19, 2024 will receive free Barrie Transit passes for the 2024-25 school year. Two, that the Director of Transit and Parking Strategy or their designate be given delegated authority to adjust the program throughout the school year to ensure the pilot program remains flexible as both the city and the SCDSB work through the pilot program. Three, the staff in the Transit Parking Strategy Department report back to Council with an update after the first semester and after the second semester to share feedback and determine the potential next steps. The floor is yours there, Councillor Rietma.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Normally, I'm not a fan of direct motions. I think that usually we should be discussing these things at committee and then bringing them to council. But in this case, this work has been ongoing for a long time, and this is our last meeting before the break, and this has to be figured out and the details worked out by September 1st. So that's why it's here before us. Essentially, and I have to acknowledge my partner in crime here. Councillor Nixon and I have been working on this item for a long time, simply because it makes very little sense to have a blue bus followed by a yellow bus in our city. And so what this discussion has been going on for quite a while about how do we put this together so that we only have one vehicle serving a high school. And of course, that's a pretty complicated operation. And so our staff have been working with the school board, and they looked at a number of locations in the city that this might be tried at, and so this is the first one. They're hoping to start it 1st of September, and we'll have some reports in terms of how well it's going. Students will be offered a free bus pass, and there will be a whole communication and education program that goes with it. We think that there are a lot of good reasons for doing this. Climate change for one, saving on our road traffic safety, all of those kinds of things. So I would urge council members to support this. And we think that this is a great way to introduce students to public transit. And perhaps they will continue to use it after they graduate from high school as well. So I just got an email from someone in St. Albert's who said, we're doing this and it works really well. And I know that in Kingston they do this as well. So I think this is a project that will work. I think we all recognize that we have some learning to do and there'll be some changes made, I'm sure. But I think in the long run, this is something that the city will benefit from. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riepma. Councillor Morales?
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll just say a quick few words. In my opinion, this is the next evolution of License to Ride. We've had that program for years. It's worked well. And I was just talking to Councillor Harris just before that. The only reason I'm saying a couple words right now is I'm a big fan of your direct motions tonight, Councillor Riepma, and that's because a lot of, if you look at the subject area of the pilot zone, a lot of this will be the Luna Avenue neighborhood in Ward 9. So thank you for working hard for the people of Ward 9 there. And it's going to be a unique pilot. This is a neighborhood that is kind of not as landlocked as some other subdivisions, and definitely not the only one in the city. Ward 5 has one or two that are pretty landlocked. But Huronia Road, it's very tough having the conversation going, sorry parent, you're not getting a sidewalk till 2027, 2028, because we're not going to put a sidewalk before we widen the road. And there's concerns people walking to that max at Huronia, Mapleview at night. There's concerns about cyclists, and we all have those stories in our wards. But this is a unique one where when we empower a teenager to be able to use our public transit, will it allow them to get out of their neighborhood, get out of their basements, and be active? So this is a really good pilot. It does have quite a few streets north of Big Bay in Ward 8 as well. But as you know, the other main road as part of this pilot zone is Big Bay Point. We've had accidents resulting in death just in the last 14 months. So there are quite unique circumstances in that neighborhood, so I welcome the pilot. I know that we'll have to look at the mitigation factors because the blue buses don't have the stop and flashing arm. They don't have that, whatever that thing is in the front of the bus that actually kind of swings out as well. So I'm sure a lot of these things would be learned in the pilot, but I welcome the information once it's concluded, Mayor Nuttall.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll be quick too. First of all, thank you, Councillors Nixon and Councillor Riepma. And thank you, staff, for choosing Ward 8 and Ward 9 to do the pilot. And Innisdale being in Ward 8, grateful as well for that. So, and just maybe as a FYI, as we look toward the future and soon having our first meeting of our youth council, certainly that would be another lens opportunity to view this exciting pilot through. So look forward to seeing how we could use that new youth council in the near future to have conversations about this pilot and others like this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Harris. Councillor Kungle.
fantastic approach. Love to see this coming back to a couple of different forums around whatever survey or input we could get, both to the Youth Council, but perhaps to seniors and accessibility, where we've done free transit on a permanent basis for Tuesdays and Thursdays, but also active transportation. So we've been talking about increasing ridership, I believe, over time, hitting certain metrics will actually get us some revenue. So this is a pretty significant strategic opportunity for us if we can figure out, do youth become an interested stakeholder group where we need to be targeting more communications or access to transit? And I do appreciate that in the memo, the built-in approach to hosting in-person travel training sessions and making sure students feel comfortable. And I don't know what the infrastructure is there then, because sometimes when you're out in the different elements of the weather, people may not want to be standing in the rain while they're waiting for the bus. And so knowing that it's an area of development and added infrastructure also can help us to identify reasons why they may not be taking this opportunity for free transit access.
Thank you. Good point, Sir Councillor. Any other comments or questions? I'm not seeing any. Thank you, councillors, for bringing this forward. Councillors Nixon and Romita. I think this is good evolution in terms of as Councillor Morales has said, but even more than that, our relationship with the school boards are continuing to progress and move forward that haven't been as fruitful in the past as they are today. So thank you for continuing down that road and finding the bridges where we can work together. I'm now going to call the vote. All those in favor, and it carries unanimously. So we will move on to the next item, which is Councillor Kungle.
Yes, thank you. I have a motion with respects to an additional member of Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee. So this is moved by myself and seconded by Mayor Alex Nuttall, that the representative of the Simcoe Muskoka District Catholic School Board be appointed to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee, and I can speak to this. Thanks, Wendy.
It's moved by Councillor Kungle and seconded by myself that an additional member for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee be appointed, that representative of the Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board be appointed to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you. So while I have had actually numerous requests to be added to the committee, I think we spoke about it at length a little bit about the scope of this. It's a review of the current Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. This is a new committee. It won't capture everybody that was involved in the development of our original plan, but it was, I think, highlighted about if we've got the public board to add the Catholic. Those that don't feel they're there and would like to be there, I would say stay connected to those of us on the committee. It is something we're trying to motion tonight because we do want to start engaging those individuals and have them convene, I think, soon through the summer and get the process started with a deadline, I believe, of July 2025. So unless there's any other questions regarding that, I think the terms of reference, if you refer back to the staff memo on this, identifies the scope of membership. It's not necessarily limited, but engagement would be involved in that in addition to those on various committees, but felt the current membership, other than this one, overlaps those that would be involved or captured.
Thank you, Councillor Kungle. Any other comments or questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you again. Another example, again, of the growing relationship between the school boards and the city. And unfortunately, one of the individuals was away when we were actually having this discussion, came back and said, I think that the Simcoe County Catholic District School Board should be, or Simcoe Muskoka should be at the table as well. And so we're able to make that change. All those in favor? It carries. Just give me one moment here. We're going to go to Councillor I didn't get that right today. Councillor Morales.
That's okay. So, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, motion without notice, support of the Sandbox Center's application for Regional Innovation Center funding. Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, bracket MEDJCT, close bracket. That pursuant to Section 7.1 of the Procedural Bylaw 2019-100, permission be granted to introduce a motion without notice concerning support of the Sandbox Center's application for Regional Center, bracket RIC, close bracket, funding with the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation, and Trade.
It's moved by Councillor Morales and seconded by Councillor Hamilton that a motion without notice support of the Sandbox Centre's application for Regional Innovation Centre funding, Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, that pursuant to Section 7.1 of the Procedural Bylaw 2019-100, permission be granted to introduce a motion without notice concerning support of the Sandbox's application for Regional Centre RIC funding with the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. Councillor Morales, the floor is yours.
Mayor Nuttall, we have to vote on to accept,
Because we're not allowed to speak to this. So, because we can't
You were
speak to
testing
it-
me. That's what really happened, right? You were testing me. Okay, I passed the test. There we
you
go.
passed.
Okay.
So, because there's no speaking to this, I'm sorry, I had missed that. We'll go directly into the vote. So all those in favor of the motion without notice? It carries unanimously. So now we'll go to the main motion. Councillor?
Letting me speak more than I'm allowed to. I don't know if you want that. Councillor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, support of the Sandbox Center's application for Regional Innovation Center RIC funding, Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation, and Trade. Section 1, that up to $25,000 be funded from the Tax Stabilization Reserve to the Sandbox Center for the retention of a professional consultant to support the development of the proposal submission to the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation, and Trade in response to their calls for proposal for a Regional Innovation Center, RIC, in Barrie, due July 9th, 2024. And in Section 2, that the Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to provide a letter of support for the Sandbox's Center's application to become the Regional Innovation Center to MEDJCT, subject to the Sandbox Center's proposal and associated governance structure being proposed through the application to address the conditions of the call for proposal and parameters determined by MEDJCT for Regional Innovation Centers in a form to the satisfaction of the Director of Economic and Creative Development and the Chief Administrative Officer.
It's moved by Councillor Morales and seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Support of the Sandbox Center's application for Regional Innovation Center RIC funding, Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. 1, that up to $25,000 be funded from the Tax Rate Stabilization Reserve to the Sandbox Center for the retention of a professional consultant to support the development of the proposal submission to the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade in response to their call for proposals for a Regional Innovation Center in Barrie, due July 9th, 2024. 2, that the Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to provide a letter of support for the Sandbox Center's application to become the Regional Innovation Center, MEDJCT, subject to the Sandbox Center's proposal and associated governance structure being proposed through the application to address the conditions of the call for proposal and parameters determined by MEDJCT for Regional Innovation Centers in a form to the satisfaction of the Director of Economic and Creative Development and the Chief Administrative Officer. Now the floor is yours. I can't believe you gave up the chance to speak.
Maturity. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. So the Sandbox is also ready for the next evolution. I think there's lots of people here that have been obviously who knew about the Sandbox from its start and its envisioning by Craig Bush and the original board. I don't want to go through the names because I'm going to miss somebody, but that board as well. We, the Sandbox, and if I say we in the sentences, it's because I am your city council appointee on the board, so that's why I'm saying we. The Sandbox board is now at the point where it is ready to apply for this application program that the ministry has created. It is ready to become a RIC. And I think the city of, I'm just speaking for myself, but I think the city of Barrie should be happy with that, because that's like having your 30-year-old move out of the basement and be ready for the next step in life. It's by allowing the Sandbox to grow into a regional innovation center, it allows the support of not just startups, not just growth corporations, but maturity corporations. And that is exactly what we had envisioned, to have the kind of innovation incubation hub that Markham has had now for quite over a decade, and hopefully it's Barrie's turn. The good news is there's lots of funding, there's lots of money, there's lots of support, and that always is good news for the municipal taxpayer. So the specific situation to this is the turnaround time for the application is very quick. And trust me, we had like over a 3.5, 4 hour board meeting last week. The bandwidth is not there to get us to the successful application. Doesn't mean we don't have the talent. There's just various circumstances that quite succinctly put, don't allow it to get to the finish line, and the Sandbox is confident that it can't be the location that's chosen for the area, and that it will be the successful one, but it definitely needs the support it's asking for, both from a consultant perspective, but from a monetary perspective, to get to the finish line. So, hence the motion without notice.
Are there any other questions or comments with regards to the funding, Councillor Romita?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm very supportive of the Sandbox and of this application here before us. I agree with Councillor Morales. I think it's our child has grown up, and I think that's great. I think my concern with it is that we have groups that come before us regularly asking for funds, and I'm a little concerned about, granting money here and then saying no to others and that kind of thing. We don't seem to have a good rationale. And so while I'm supportive here, I'm just wondering if it's possible to give this money, the $25,000 to them as a loan, so that when they receive the funding from the government for the RIC, that they pay us back. I don't know whether that's possible or not, but it would alleviate that piece of my concern.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Romita. I'll take that as a question. The answer is no, because this is part of the application process for funding from the provincial government. If they were to cover this, they'd essentially have to cover every other application process, which they're just not going to do. So we're unable to do that piece in terms of treating it as a loan. It's either we stand up and say we're going with support for the Sandbox, or we say let's wait and see what happens through the application process. Are there any other comments or questions you have there, sir?
No, and I certainly understand that rationale, and I'm still very supportive of it anyway. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I wasn't going to say anything, but then with some of the points that were brought up, I think it's important to kind of highlight how this partnership is different. We've got one of our councillors sitting on their board. We have our own business, City of Barrie Business Development Office in the same building, in the same area. And I know I've spoken against giving them money in the past for other things, but this is the one time that I think it definitely makes sense, that it's the only way that they're going to be able to put a robust application forward is with this grant, with this money, to have a professional grant writer put the best foot forward. And as Councillor Romita said, the child has grown up. I don't know that it's our child, but Craig Bush's child has grown up is what I would say. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions, members of council? Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Yeah, and I was just going through the report on what came this afternoon, the letter from the Sandbox. As far as, and we've talked about, and Councillor Harvey referenced, voting against money for the Sandbox in the past with good reason, and we've invested in the Sandbox. Is this fair to say this would be an investment, such that in the future we would have less requests or need to be funding the Sandbox or providing funds for the Sandbox, because this, being this Regional Innovation Center, will allow them to have the funds to operate without, being supported by the city at the same level they've been in the past? I don't know if that's a question for who might have that, or just who would have the answer to that question. Thank you.
So I had a similar question when this was first coming up. And to answer it, I don't think that this means that we don't provide funding for the Sandbox going forward, or whatever the iteration of it is. I think this means that we accept a ton of funding from the province of Ontario if they award through this process it to the Sandbox. And is there, does that reduce the amount we have to put in the future? Maybe, maybe not. But what it certainly does is it opens up a whole bunch of new doors that we just haven't had access to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the answer. And so I still see that as an investment in our community, and whether that nets less funding from the city in the future, so be it, but we're definitely investment in our business community, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Any other questions or comments? Amazing. I just want to outline how this came to be. We had not Councillor, just got the wrong role here. We had MPP Kanjan originally start talking with Invest Barrie about this and MPP Downey. We had something very unusual in the sense that when the announcement came that there was going to be a regional innovation center, it literally said inside of the budget that it was going to be in the City of Barrie. And at that point, it got even tighter in terms of what the requests are, that there has to be a certain number of years operating inside of the City of Barrie, meaning an organization couldn't try to transplant here to fill the need for this regional innovation center. The provincial government made it very clear that they wanted a homegrown organization that already knew what was happening on the ground to be the recipient. Where you look at the other issues around this funding is it couldn't be post-secondary or municipal government. So there leaves a few options, and if you look at the Sandbox's support they've gotten, the other organizations in the city believe they're best positioned to receive these dollars. I don't necessarily see it as our child is growing up. I think they have the opportunity to grow up. There's a lot of work, being honest, that needs to be done in order to meet the requirements of the provincial government in terms of this funding. And there has been a massive investment put in initially from the City of Barrie, from Mr. Bush, from many members of the community to make this happen. And should it all come together, I think it looks very favorably back on that initial vision and investment that took place. So there's lots of work to do, but I wouldn't want to see a request for funds for the organization that's best positioned that didn't have the city's support, because we are talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million a year in funding allocated by the provincial government to the City of Barrie. A request that goes back, I'm fairly sure, 15 years. Stephanie, is there any way you can confirm that? I think it was in the late 2000s we first started talking about regional innovation hubs or things like that.
Mayor Nuttall, the Regional Innovation Center we've been advocating for some years. This is the first one that the province has funded in more than a decade.
So to put in perspective how important this is and how unique it is, look at the time periods, and I hope this is nothing but a success, and certainly our CAO and our director in terms of economic development and creative development in the City of Barrie will be able to come back and sign off on any of the changes needed in terms of the board structure to adhere to the provincial regulations. So I'm very supportive of this. I think it's another thing we'll be able to look back at the end of the 4 years and go, that was talked about for a very, very, very long time. Didn't happen. Now it has. And it's because we've got that all levels of government working together for the city. With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Councillor Corser.
Thank you. You brought up a point that I wanted to ask a question to. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. Through you to staff, or I guess maybe you can answer this, Mayor Nuttall, was there any other organizations that approached the city?
I'm seeing shaking heads of no.
Yeah, me too. Like a nope. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, we'll now call the vote. All those in favor? And it carries. We have another motion without notice, moved by Councillor Negussi. So Councillor Negussi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Nadal. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Harvey, that consideration of Municipal Act and Public Library Act, that staff in the Finance Department work with the Public Library Board to bring forward a financial policy for Council's consideration that improves financial governance and oversight. Oh, should I okay. I apologize.
It's okay. I've made about 3 mistakes tonight, so you're allowed to make one. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you again, Mayor Nadal. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Harvey. Motion without notice, Barrie Public Library capital spending. That pursuit of Section 7.1, the procedural bylaw 2019/100, permission be granted, introduced a motion without notice concerning the Barrie Public Library capital spending. 2/3 of majority vote is required.
Thank you, Councillor Negussi. It's moved by Councillor Negussi and seconded by Councillor Harvey that motion without notice Barrie Public Library capital spending that pursuant to Section 7.1 of the procedural bylaw 2019-100, permission be granted to introduce a motion without notice concerning the Barrie Public Library capital spending. A 2/3 majority is required, as Councillor Negussi had said. So all those in favor? All those in favor, please put your hands up. And it carries. Councillor Negussi.
Thank you again. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Harvey, that the consideration of Municipal Act and Public Library Act, that staff in Finance Department work with Barrie Public Library Board to bring forward a financial policy for Council's consideration that improves financial governance and oversight related to allocation of grant and use of library reserve, and that until such time as a council-approved financial policy is in effect, the library board seek city council approval for any capital expense that have not been previously approved by city council through the annual budget process, and I can speak to that.
Thank you, Councillor Negussi. It's moved by Councillor Negussi and seconded by Councillor Harvey. The Barrie Public Library capital spending. One, that in consideration of the Municipal Act and the Public Libraries Act, that staff in the Finance Department work with the Barrie Public Library Board to bring forward a financial policy for consideration by Council that improves financial governance and oversight related to the allocation of grants and use of library reserves. Two, that until such a time as Council approved financial policies in effect, the Library Board seeks City Council approval for any capital expenses that have not been previously approved by City Council through the annual budget process. Councillor Negussi, the floor is yours.
Mayor Nadal, members of Council, the purpose of this motion is to ask service partners, specifically our library, to seek approval from City Council for a capital reserve spending moving forward. One of the City Council strategic plan priority is responsible governance. This change ensure our spending aligns with strategic goals and commitment to transparency and accountability. By requiring the library and other service partners to present their plan for capital reserve spending to City Council, we foster a better understanding of their needs and goals where ensuring a careful allocation of resources. I am confident this change will empower Barrie Library and other service partners for a long-term success. With Council's oversight, Mayor Nadal and members of Council, we can help them navigate challenges and seize opportunities for the growth. Let us take this step forward, responsible governance, demonstrating our dedication to the practical use of public fund. So I urge Council to support this motion for the benefit of our service partner and community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Negussi. Are there any questions or comments? I'm going to go to Councillor Corser first, as she sits on the Barrie Public Library Committee. Then I'll go to Councillor Kungle following that, and then Councillor Harvey following that.
thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward through you, Mayor Nettle, to, I guess, Councilor Nagusi. The motion that I have in front of me reads only the library, but you mentioned the other service partners. Could you outline what service partners, all of our service partners? Would that include like Simcoe County and the police department?
Yeah, all service partners, but the motion is focused on the library. As you know, I am in the board for Barrie Public Library.
Okay, so I guess this would be a question for staff. Do we usually decide, does the city actually approve capital expenses for any of our service partners at this time?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Courser. So if we look at the county, we have a service level agreement with the county that basically dictates how they present their budget and how we fund it. The police, we are products of the province, so there's different legislation for different service partners. So the police bring forward their budget. I believe they do have capital requests in there. With the arrangement with the police, municipalities do have sort of limited abilities to, you can influence their budget, but ultimately if council didn't approve a police budget, they have the opportunity to appeal up to the province to get approval. And the library board, again, you're governed by the Municipal Act, excuse me, and the Public Library Act, and there's a lot of gray areas in that, but there is a requirement under the Municipal Act that the City Council does approve their budget. So it's each partner is sort of dictated by different legislation. But generally speaking, there is a requirement to seek, if you're seeking funding from the city, whether it be capital or operating, you do get the opportunity to approve it or comment on it.
Just to follow up on that, so we traditionally or historically, we don't approve like the Simcoe County, Simcoe County, or the Barrie Police wouldn't come to council, or historically up to this point, the library would not come to City Council to request, would not need to come to City Council to request approval for any capital funds at this point?
So,
sorry, just to clarify, outside of budget.
So through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Courser. So generally speaking, the process is a requirement that you do come, the partners, the library in this case, is to present their budget to council, which council approves. I would say the level of detail provided to council perhaps doesn't show if there was capital in there or not. But generally speaking, council approves a municipal grant. Then historical practices being the library is given those funds to operate the library. Many years ago, there was a library reserve, multiple reserves created that was used by the library board. So above and beyond the capital expenditures approved by council or operating expenditures, there might have been opportunities where the library board approved to use those funds. I can't speak to the specifics of it going back in history, but generally speaking, the use of those reserves has been used by that board. So if they didn't provide detail in the budget that came to council, there could have been funding arrangements to utilize those reserves, but the detail may not have been clear. But generally speaking, I would assume that most of the major capital purchases would have come through council.
I'm sorry, just a little bit of clarity on that. So say any of our service partners wanted to renovate their building, which would be a capital expense, they would or would not traditionally come to council. I don't remember this being part of what has happened so far as long as I've been sitting on council, but that doesn't mean it hasn't happened. Like if the police wanted to renovate the inside of their building or the county, would they need to come to us to ask permission for that?
So through you, Mayor Nuttall. So if the city owns the asset, yes.
Okay. So I just I'm wondering the urgency to bring this forward, because as I understand, there's no capital projects active at this time with the Barrie Public Library, and the Barrie Public Library needs a board motion to, I guess, initiate any capital projects, which they have not. And their last meeting for the year is next week, and there's nothing on the agenda to put forth anything for a capital budget, a capital expense. And my understanding is, through you, Mayor Nuttall, to, I guess, again, Mr. Miller, the city staff needs a library board motion to move funds for them to access them for any kind of a capital expense. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall. So yes, I would imagine the direction. So the library board is operating the library.
Yeah.
So yes, if they are utilizing their reserves, just like they approve their budget that comes to city council, they would be required to seek their board to approve most transactions or use of their funds. So that I assume that would be correct.
And then I haven't, sitting in their meetings, there's nothing been passed requesting any funding, and you haven't seen any requests?
Other than what we have in the budget, I don't have that detail. And we, the library board operates the library and staff, so we're not part of their operational side of things or from the accounting side of it. So other than what they've provided to council, I wouldn't be able to comment. Or if it's been a public motion, that would be the other avenue where I would see it. But at this time, I don't have any information on that.
Yeah, because sitting on the board, there hasn't been anything. There was discussion of investigating something, but not to access any funding regards for it. And well, I appreciate the first part of the motion, that staff and finance department work with the public library to bring forward a financial policy for council's consideration that improves financial governance and oversight related to the allocation of grants and use of library reserves in partnership with the Barrie Public Library. But the second half of the motion, as it reads here, until such a time that council approved financial policy is in effect, the library board seeks city council approval for any capital expenses that have been previously approved by city council through the annual budget process. I'm just wondering why it was brought forward as a motion without notice, because it doesn't look like there's anything urgent on this that needs a motion without notice. And I found out today as well, just for further maybe assistance on this, to work with the city on this, that the library has just hired an accountant 2 weeks ago, and they're still getting their feet wet, and they are still trying to learn the ropes as is just joining. And as we all know, library finances are a very odd beast indeed, trying to wrap our heads around how the library is their finances are so different than business finance or municipal finance. That I was hopeful that maybe we could defer this motion until September, where the new accountant that works at the Barrie Library will be more understanding, get their bearings, and more be able to participate in the this motion as a whole going forward, because there doesn't seem to be much urgency, because there's nothing on the urgent now there's no capital expenditures coming up until the fall. If so, not right now, there could be in the fall. And also that the new library the library has hired a new accountant that just got in the door. So I would think that this should be deferred. I feel that this should be deferred to go through proper channels, other channels, traditional channels in the fall, through, I guess, deferred to finance and responsible governance. I don't know if that's a motion or...
So deferring refers to a time period, not a place. Referring refers, outlines a place. If you would like to put an amendment forward, you need to write that out, get a seconder, and then present it.
Okay.
So if you'd like to do that, you can definitely do that, but I don't have anything in front of me from you on this.
Okay, no, this is the motion without notice, so
Okay.
this is the motion without notice, so if I could write an amendment to the motion, I'm wondering, I do have a seconder.
So my understanding is you did have notice. The motion without notice is referring to it not being on the agenda on Thursday. I'm told that you were spoken to or spoke with each other, I guess a better description, earlier this morning. So I haven't received anything today. If you'd like to work on an amendment, and I think Councillor Kungle, you'd like to second that amendment, we're totally good to do that. What I'm going to do is go to Councillor Kungle on the main motion here while that's being worked on, and then we'll come back to you after.
Okay, can I just make a clarification?
Sure.
I just found out, I've just received the last of my information I requested about 20 minutes ago, so this is...
Right, okay. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. And I did have the chance to have a quick call with Councillor Nagusi, and I think I communicated my concerns with some of the framing before I was able to see it in writing. I will not be supportive of it. I have some suggestions that I'll add in my commentary, but I guess I'll frame them as questions specifically. So while I think verbally the conversation has talked about service providers, it is targeted, it is specific to the Barrie Public Library. I guess my question for Councillor Nagusi is, does the leadership and or board, are they aware that this is coming to council as a member of the board?
The CEO knows and Councillor Crusher knows.
But the full board of the public library, your peers on that board do not know this is coming to council tonight?
No.
Okay. My other comment was concerns about where I see it, and I'll look maybe to frame a question after I make this comment to Mr. Miller. The library's done their due diligence. They've come to City Council. We've approved the budgets. The money that you're talking about within the capital reserve is money that's already been approved. Some of it could be dollars that are surplus from other means. It could be blended with donor dollars. Are we talking about a financial bucket that you have any discerning information on as to whether or not that's specifically municipally funded, or is it also a mix of donor dollars?
Councillor, is it municipally funded or donor dollars, or there might be other means, grants?
That was my question, Mayor Nuttall. I asked the library staff to break down their surplus, the reserve capital. So far, I haven't got that response, so I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Nagusi, because I guess it would say that lends into me feeling not comfortable anyways around touching dollars that may be donor dollars and having a control into that around how they can use it or asking for permission to use dollars that they've already been approved for. I'll share after, maybe I'll go forward if the intention is to change a policy or add a financial policy in place that may be something that is looked at for all service providers about how surplus is identified, and if they come back to council to say, you know, you've approved us in the budget for this amount of money, we didn't end up filling a position, we've got, you know, $150,000 in surplus from what we were going to intend to spend it on. You know, we don't have a financial policy right now. We're in other systems like the health system. You would come back and say, okay, here's a surplus. We'd actually really like to still keep the money and use it for this. And do you approve that? Like right now, my understanding is they keep the surplus and some of that can go into reserves like capital. So that would be something I would say completely open to having a conversation where there's merit in the fall when we're back and we can have good dialogue about, is there a better financial policy we can put in place for all service providers? I am not aware, having gone through the budget and since, when I read this, for me it feels like it's, and I don't necessarily mean that this is your intention, but I would only be doing this type of approach, one, if I felt there had been any type of financial issues. So they go through their own audit, they share their financial statements, it's money that's been approved that they've been able to allocate within their right to capital reserves. I feel like this is an internal board conversation that needs to happen if you're not getting information that you want, but I feel like it's an arm's length overreach for us to be saying, until, you know, the board gets, or members of the board get what they want, the city's going to get into the sandbox with them and say, you can't touch your assets that we've historically approved and can't even differentiate if they're municipal dollars or donor dollars. So that's where I just can't support this. I would say, I think there's lots of room for a conversation about financial policies around how surplus is identified and reallocated, and that I would welcome that conversation, and even be happy to put that on the table at a finance agenda in the fall. I guess I would ask Mr. Miller, is there anything I don't understand about our role in this, about it being an appropriate reach for us to tell them, pause, you have to come to us for permission? Because I feel like that's completely out of scope of our ability to be a gatekeeper on this funding.
Through you, Mayor Nettle, I would probably say, I think the intent of the first part of the motion is to clarify the fact the last 2 years in the discussion tonight, there was a lot of questions being asked.
Yeah.
So the idea is to kind of clarify with the board, with council, under the acts, this is the responsibilities, this is the reporting requirements, this is what the information we need. So that's really the intent to clarify going forward. I think that's not an overreach. I think that's a healthy opportunity to avoid all the multiple debates. In terms of, does council have the ability to go in and take money that's sitting in library reserves? I'm not a lawyer, but I think that's probably a reach that you don't have authority over without boards, even the library board's agreement on that. So I think the opportunity is to clarify the rules of engagement, so it's kind of, you don't have so many questions.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So I would say, Councilor Negussi, if you feel that this stands in light of that conversation, you've coupled them together, I absolutely cannot support this. I would be happy to work with you about how we could craft conversations about financial policies that deal with surplus. I don't know if that's your intention in this, but I think overall, it would be good for us to get into a very clear process before we get into budget time and presentations by any of our service providers about what exactly we had a lot of questions about last year, because we put some of them through the gauntlet of questions, of Q&A, and they were, they did, every partner participated in trying to get us timely information. Now, whether or not we feel good about that or clear about that, but I think the intention is we want to have and feel like we're making informed decisions on a budget. And so let's be clear then this fall, before we ask them to present and they're preparing their budgets, is what exactly do we want to see, and disclosure, and what does that look like?
Thank you, Councillor Kungle, for your comments and for the questions. My question, just to clarify, so number one, it sounds like you're good with, but number two, you feel, so you're not okay with number one?
Number two, I'm not.
Sorry, okay, so number two you're not good with because the either is or could be perceived as an overreach into the operations of the library.
Yeah, I think we're blending governance. I don't think that's within it. If you want to separate it, then I'll assume that the language in number one is not punitive, but it is an intention to improve financial conversations and disclosure and governance. It's not a judgment on current governance or financial management, because I've got no concerns with how they're operating.
Is there anywhere in there that you would, this isn't my motion, but be open to something in terms of request instead of that it happen?
I think it's just like when you're getting into a financial policy, it does target one particular agency. So, I mean, I'd almost rather you defer this, you work on this. The Public Library Board has a conversation about concerns or what this is intended, and it's something that actually comes to us on behalf of the board that says we're willing to participate, and this is a scope of participation that we're interested in, rather than a member of the board.
I have Councillor Harvey, then I've got Councillor Hamilton.
Great, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. And obviously I seconded this. I do support it as the Chair of Finance and Responsible Governance, because I think this is very much aligned with the guidelines of that committee. And I'm a huge supporter of the library. Like, I pushed the first term to get the Holly Library branch open. It was the first kind of what I would say boutique-style library. However, it was an eye-opening experience going through that at the same time, and not always for good reasons. And that's where I support that there needs to be better governance, not only with this service partner, but possibly with other service partners. However, this particular service partner has always raised questions at budget time, not just through this term, but through last term, because of some of the concerns with their budget. And what I've seen since term 1 to term 2 is the budget that's being presented to us has been very much dumbed down and not as detailed as what it once was. And I've highlighted that to the CEO the past 2 years in a row, because I would like to see more detail opposed to just 4 or 5 lines that have dollar amounts and very little detail to them. Whereas if you look back 5, 6 years ago, their budgets looked very different. I guess my first question would be to Mr. Miller. When it comes to their reserve account, because I know some of the other accounts, they actually do fall within the city and stuff, but the actual reserve account, is that held within a city account at all, or is their reserve account totally standalone with their own bank and such forth?
So through you, Mayor Nettle. So just understand it's a reserve account. It's an accounting entry. Like there's no money. They don't have their own bank account. It flows through us. But the reserve is in their GL, is under their purview. It's on their financial statements. So it is under their realm of control.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. I thought that's the way it was, but I just wanted a little bit of clarity. Now, a few years ago when, and I believe the figure was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1 million to redo Painswick, and that was outside of any budget request. When that was done, do you recall ever any type of request being made, or how would have that taken place? Because I was told that it was done through the reserve account to be able to redo all the furniture at the Painswick location, and the furniture that they replaced was only 10 years old.
Through you, Mayor Nettle, to Councillor Harvey. I'd have to go back and look into that, see if it came through council or was approved directly by their board. So I'm sorry I can't answer that at this
Great,
point.
thank you. So it is my understanding that at the most recent board meeting, there was some discussions about further capital expenditures in relation to some further furniture purchases that was north of $1 million. And that was in public session, so I'm not speaking out of term when I speak about that. And that's where the concern comes from. And when I've asked in the past as the chair of finance to the CEO, when it comes to your reserve account, what's the makeup? What percentage of it is true reserves from taxpayers' dollars opposed to dollars that would have been donated by supporters of the library? And they don't have that answer because they don't know. And that, in my opinion, is poor accounting. And so obviously they can't fix what's already gone backwards. So hopefully having an accountant in place now, things will change moving forward. But their reserve account is quite healthy. There's a few $1 million there. And that's a concern that potentially more furniture could get replaced that doesn't necessarily need to be replaced. And even that 10-year-old good furniture that they probably could have sold, instead it got donated. So that's where sometimes I look at some of the decisions that are being made, and they're not quite as what I would say responsible as what I would like to see or what we would probably do around this table. And we've seen other service partners that just this past budget time ended up turning back excess amounts to the tune of, it was either 1.2 or $1.7 million. 1.2, yeah, thank you, Mayor. And that was from the police, who are always on the radar and always getting scrutinized with everything that they do. We haven't seen anything of that from this particular service partner. And if I didn't have concerns about maybe what I would say excessive spending in areas that don't need to be happening, then I wouldn't even be talking like this. But even during the Holly process, they were ordering high-end appliances for their staff room that I can't even afford to put in my own house. So why would you put it in a staff room? And that's where I really have concerns with some of the decisions that get made. And that's where I give kudos to Councillor Negussi for bringing this forward, because you have to wear two hats. When you're around that board table as a member of the public library, you have to act in the best interests of the public library. But then when you come back here to this table around council, you have to act in the best interest of the taxpayers of the City of Barrie. And I think that's exactly what this motion does, and this is exactly what Councillor Negussi is doing. And that's why I will support this and continue to support this, because I've seen things firsthand that cause me concerns even before I received the phone call from Councillor Negussi.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. I'm going to go to Councillor Hamilton now, and then I'll go to Councillor Morales after that.
Thank you, and through you, and thank you, Councillor Harvey. You did clarify a lot of my comments, and I was quite supportive of this when talking to Negussi, and I got a little bit muddied there because it was my understanding as well that the library was looking at some new capital investments, and that was part of the public session, so I was a bit confused. And that's why I thought that this conversation was more imminent than as opposed to deferring it. So, and I remember during budget time, I also had concerns about some of their budgeting practices as well, the amount of reserve they had. Just if I can ask Mr. Millar, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but can you remind me again what their overall budget is and how much they have in reserves, like ballpark figures? Do you have that handy?
It's 9.8 million. It's just under 10 million. There's 1.8 million, I believe, in reserve. There was an unallocated surplus of about 550 to 600,000, and Mr. Miller is going to tell me I'm off by 100,000 on every number I just gave you.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. No, that's close, very close. Budget was 9.3. The city's contribution was 9.3 from the operating budget, and they have I think $2.9 million capital reserve, and then they have some smaller amounts for book replacement.
Okay.
But the main reserve is their capital. 2.6 million.
2.6 million, okay. And I think I recall that from their funding standpoint, it was like 98% funded from the municipality. Is that correct as well?
I think on average the last 5 years it's more around 92, 93.
Okay, so of that $2.6 million reserve that you mentioned, we could guesstimate that probably the majority of that is coming from the city's leftover budget that they have received on the taxpayers.
Correct, I think that would be reasonable. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, and I remember during this budget, I was like, holy smokes, I work in the nonprofit world. I have never seen reserves in this proportion ever in Ontario. So, and I remember looking at the Public Libraries Act, and it is silent on reserve funds. It doesn't really dictate how much they can have or how they should spend them or who holds them. I looked up the Municipal Act as well, and it does say that library boards have the authority to have reserve funds, and common practice is that municipalities hold the library reserve funds for them. So I do think there's a lot of improvement that can be made here from a governance financial oversight position, and I do believe we need to relook at the financial policies here. I don't understand how a library can accumulate $2.6 million in reserves. I just think that is, we're overfunding them year over year, right, and allowing them to accumulate this. Of course, there is a certain percent of a reserve that you should have for wind-up costs and for repair costs and whatnot, but that to me is just out of the ordinary, and alarms did go off. So that, and combined with sort of some of the notion that they're looking at, again, some new investments, some new capital costs, I'm worried if we do defer this, and I don't sit on the board, so I don't know what conversations are had. I'm only privy to what's been in the public and what I've had access to, so I'm a bit hesitant to defer it because I don't know if I have the trust there. Also hearing Councillor Cursor's comments that they just have a new accountant on board, like, I think maybe it is time to say, whoa, let's just pause as we have new employers, as we're, have some questionable practices when it comes to accounting and finances, to look at our policies that are in place right now. I mean, that's our fiduciary responsibility. So I'm inclined to support this, and thank you for bringing it forward. I hope nobody's feeling like they're being targeted. That's not the point here. Our point is never to target out people, but it's really to look at our fiduciary responsibility. That's why we're sitting in these chairs, and to make sure that the partners that we're funding are employing best practices when it comes to financial oversight. So if we have any concerns or questions, I think it's our responsibility to take a pause. If someone wants to, reword it a little bit, fine, but I'm hesitant to defer, and I do think we should put a pause on any further spending, or it has to come through us, or we're supportive of it coming through us if you want to change some wording there, but otherwise I'm supportive of the motion as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nettle. For me, this is about basic project management. I want to know what our service partners are doing to our buildings, our capital. I'll give an example. So, and Ms. McCallum probably helped me remember, police were still in their building at Sperling in 2016, 2017, around that time, right? Because the station would have been 2017. So, for example, this is a hypothetical, it didn't happen, but if the Barrie Police Service had committed to doing major capital investment at Sperling Drive in 2016, and we didn't hear about it through our board appointees, and for whatever reason, it'd be nice for us to hear about it. I would have wanted to hear about it because we were about to surplus that building and build a new station, and now Sperling, all these years later, is being surplus. So that would have been an unfortunate, avoidable capital expense. So it goes back to what I said. This is about good basic project management. If we know what our service partners are doing in terms of capital investments, even in the form of a presentation, a report, a memo, it's no different than when staff come back with a year-end surplus of our tax base, or say this project's being deferred, this project needs a top-up. It's the same thing. And so I'm supportive of the end principle. I very much in good faith received Councillor Kungle's comments, though. So if there are tweaks that need to be done because of the reserve, I'm sure we'll get an email. Like we tried to do a patio, we tried to do a program during COVID, and we got a memo back saying you can't do this. So it's not the first time if we have to do a few tweaks. So that's not going to hold me back from wanting to separate these. And finally, Mayor Nettle, I just want to say quickly, it's not my job to defend you, Councillor Negussi, but I do want to support your autonomy to bring this motion to us without necessarily having gone to the board, and here's why. Just as I said earlier about the Sandbox, we are the appointees from council to these boards. We're not the board appointees to the council. So the dynamic, now in a perfect world, could your timing or your situation have been like, I got lucky. The Sandbox met last Tuesday, all of this came up, and there was one more meeting. Like we're texting Ms. Schlichter, you're getting it at your desk. The timing worked out. But I don't think you meant any disrespect. I don't think anybody implied that you meant disrespect, but I think that your autonomy to bring a motion without notice, that's why we have these processes, and that's why we have this. And I just wanted, again, I don't need to defend you, but I do want to reiterate the fact that we are appointees to our service partners boards, and I know in the past, staff members have brought up the fact that it's always tough wearing those two hats, but I don't find this unusual in any way, and I think that, as Councillor Harvey has said, over the years, the library staff and board members, and we have multiple term members who have been there for a while, they have heard this loud and clear from council. So this is not by any means any surprise. And at the end of the day, it's not about a gotcha moment, it's just about better project management and alignment. Like what if we don't know, but in our long-term capital plan, they're just investing in the wrong thing, and we want to be able to pivot. So because of those reasons, I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harris.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I thought I wouldn't speak to this, but the conversation has certainly been very interesting. And I was similarly supportive of the first paragraph and wondered about the second one being an overreach. And then, and I'm reflecting on the conversations over the last few years regarding the library budget. I'm always, interested in the difference between municipally funded service partners and provincially funded transfer payment agencies. And it's really interesting, and Councillor Hamilton alluded to it. I mean, if you're funded provincially and you're a transfer payment agency, you have to balance your budget. There's no deficit. If you have unused funds, you have to return them. There's no, we're going to keep a reserve on the side. And there's no option to present every year for an annual increase. You don't get those. But here we are. at this level of government, the funding that we have, with 9 cents on the tax dollar, service partners having some real luxuries, and good for them. But I'm curious, when we have a $2.6 million reserve, and maybe Mr. Miller, through you, Mayor Nuttall, can refresh my memory. How much did we increase their budget this year? What did they ask for, the library?
2 point something. I'm hearing 1.9 from Deputy Mayor.
I'm getting older. My memory's eluding me. I'm going to have to give me a few minutes to look that up.
Okay. So they asked for an increase, and they had a reserve. I think, it's really interesting, and also, if I remember correctly, there was discussion about the reserve, and I think some of the really fair rationale was there was plans for this reserve to be directed to a new library. Am I correct in that? Ms. Miller, sorry.
I would have to defer to the board members. I don't have that information.
Okay. Yes, thank you. I'm just seeing that the increase, the city portion was $517,000 this year's budget. So maybe through you, Mayor Nuttall, to either of the board members, is that part of the understanding that, if I'm correct, that it was, maybe you, Ms. Corser, thank you, Councilor Corser, that the reserve is largely in part to be dedicated to new library?
I am not an accountant through you, Mayor Nuttall. I am not an accountant, and I don't play one on TV, and my understanding is, and I'm sure that this will come out, further details and understanding of this will come out in when the staff work with the Barrie Public Library for their financial policies and understanding. So we have a better understanding at the table, so we don't have these conversations. They do not have a capital reserve. They have reserves. And my understanding is that fund is for funding satellite or secondary, third libraries in different areas of the city in the future, and for whatever expenses, capital expenses that they have in the future. That is what that fund is for.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it's good to know that the fact that they're accumulating a surplus year in, year out, and asking for an increase in their budget every year that I've been on council, which is now 6 budgets, that money that our taxpayers are putting into the library, which is, I'm going to guess, in the neighborhood of 92% of that surplus, because that's how their funding generally is weighted. It feels like, something seems to be amiss, and there's opportunity. And I think those of you who may be concerned about the conversation about the library, I can remember last term BIA was definitely, there was efforts from council to make some changes from this side of the table. Certainly the police services, police have been called to question in the county of Simcoe. So I think, given the answer that there is no plan for any capital that was provided by Councilor Corser, it sounds like there's no worry that the second part of the motion would have any impact, because there's no plan, and there's no movement to separate the two. I think, given the opportunity to make some of these improvements and recognizing this reserve, the admission that there is some concerns and some new accountant on the board coming on to help with things, I think I would, leaning now towards being supportive of both paragraphs, because I think maybe it is an opportunity to improve the practices. So I will wait for other comments, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Are there any other members of council? Councillor Romita.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I love the library, and you know what? You can even borrow a book there. There's a whole lot of other things you can do. And they run a great operation as far as I'm concerned. But they are accountable for how they spend their money, but they get their money mostly from us, and we're responsible how they spend it. And so I think, from an accountability point of view, I'm very much in support of this motion. Every year, when it's budget time, we have a great deal of discussion at the library, when they bring their budget here. And I think that's a sort of indicative that, we are all a little mystified by what that budget contains most of the time. And so I would be delighted if Mr. Miller and his people would work with the library board and come back to us with a report that says everything's perfect over there. I would really look forward to a report like that. I'm not sure that we would get one. And I think that it's always good to have another look at how we're doing things and how they're doing things. I think in terms of the timing, I think this is a really opportune time, and I thank Councillor Negussi for bringing it forward now, because this will give our staff and the library staff time to work over the summer to figure it out and to come back with a report, because as you know, it's no doubt they're in the throes of next year's budget. And I would really like to have a budget before us that is really great and is supported by all the proper documentation. So I would urge you to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Reed. Are there any other comments or questions or motions? You can't speak to a second time, but you can move an amendment that I think that you're working on.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to council, I guess, I would like to put an amendment to the motion forward, to the direct motion, concerning the Barrie Public Library capital spending be referred to the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee in September 2025. 2024. 2024.
That's a big deferral.
It's really way.
I don't want to talk about it.
Let's end the conversation now.
It's moved by Councillor Corser, seconded by Councillor Kungle, that the direct motion concerning the Barrie Public Library capital spending be referred to the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee for September of 2024. So this is essentially referring it to committee for September's meeting versus dealing with it tonight. Are there any comments or questions on the referral motion? On the referral motion, you can make comments, yes. No. On deferral. Okay, see, there was my fourth mistake of the night. So no comments. Yeah, comments. I tried to let you speak, but you saw that. You saw that. All right. All those in favor of the referral motion? It fails. We're back on the main motion. Are there any other comments or questions with regards to the main motion? You can't speak to it again.
Recorded vote.
A recorded vote's been requested. Madam Clerk? We're not going to proceed with the recorded vote yet, though. Sorry. Before we go there, I have to say this. When we went through the budget, we asked these questions, and I don't think they got answered. And we have the KPIs communicated, but we still didn't get the answers to the questions. At least, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to speak for the rest of the council. I didn't get the answers to questions that I asked during the budget period. I think the number's bigger than it's even being communicated, because I do remember there being something called an unallocated surplus, and as far as I can tell, that's basically a cash flow amount that's able to be dipped into, which is essentially another amount of money that's sitting in the bank account, the vast city bank account and library bank account that is able to be tapped into. So I think it must be, I thought it was 2 million based on memory from a number of months ago, but it sounds like it's actually over $3 million on a $10 million budget, or 30% contingency if something were to come up and arise. Mr. Miller, the City of Barrie's reserves versus our total annual budget, what percentage of our total annual budget do we have in reserve? Now, the cupboards are bare, we get that, but just guesstimate for us.
I'm trying to think of how to answer the question. So, sorry, how much is in our
So in
reserves
terms of-
relative to our budget?
In terms of reserves versus our annual budget, and I'm not talking about DCs and things that we don't actually own, but the tax rate stabilization reserve, the tax capital reserve, we've got.
So our operating budgets, our gross budget's around 400 million, and our capital annual budget, I'm going to say annual, so not multi-year, is around 300-400 million. And I think we have about 400 or 500 million in reserves, most of which is sort of committed.
Uncommitted, though.
Most of it's committed. I'd have to get back to you on the committed number.
I recall 59 million.
It's low, but it's uncommitted.
So we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 8% of our annual budget and reserve, and we have an organization that we fund that has 30%. It's a massive difference. I think that if there's no spending going to happen over the summertime, and that's what I'm hearing, then there's no need to worry about not allowing spending over the summertime. And I do think that there's got to be a point that's not the next budget process where we have 5 or 6 organizations coming in, and we can't give it the time that it deserves at that budget time, and we have the pressure to just pass the budget in order to get the information that's being requested. Of the 3 organizations that we focused on during the last budget, and I didn't expect to come in and be having a budget talk tonight, to be blunt. The County of Simcoe, we are currently doing, Mr. Miller, a value for money audit. I think we've started down that road.
That's correct. Just had a meeting today.
So we are going down the road of investigating whether we're getting value for the services they provide for us. The Barrie Police Department, of which we appoint 3 out of the 5 members, 2 of them sit around this table, has returned a total of, I believe it's $1.5 million since we requested it at the last budget time, and that was due to surplus. And there's one that we asked questions of at budget time that has responded with the KPIs, but hasn't responded with the where do you get your surplus, how do the dollars come in, what is it allocated for in the future, what is an unallocated surplus, what does it mean, how is it used, what are the financial regulations that are in place in order to manage it. And when we ask our staff the same questions, they can't answer because they don't know. So I think this is a really nice opportunity. An accountant brought on board at the library, a potential in terms of the time to be able to prepare it, as Councillor Romita said, before the budget, and the leadership of our finance department, which I think we have a great deal of faith in, to be able to go and answer all those questions we ask. And I don't think it means that a dollar is moved one way or another, but when a dollar is going to be moved one way or another, we need to make sure that we just have those proper regulations in place so that we can look folks in the eye and say, oh yeah, we know that $2 million is going towards the new Southeast Library, and there's $500,000 going towards a renovation at X, and we can answer those questions. But today, none of us, I don't believe, unless somebody pipes up now, I don't believe any of us can answer any of those questions about the surpluses. So I'm going to support it as well. And Madam Clerk, I'm sorry for interrupting you after I went to you for the recorded vote.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'm going to start with Councillor Romita.
Yes.
Councillor Nixon.
Yes.
Councillor Kungle.
No.
Councillor Corser.
No.
Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Councillor Negussi.
Yes.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Morales.
Yes.
Councillor Hamilton.
Yes.
And Mayor Nuttall.
Yep.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Are there any other direct motions without notice this evening? It's been the busiest direct motion evening I've ever seen. We will move past presentations, as there's no other presentations this evening, and into inquiries. Are there any inquiries? Councillor Kungle.
I do. To Mr. Miller, and please redirect to Ms. Peters from a legal perspective. Based on the motion that was just passed, do we have any concerns about legal risk? Because I see it inherently problematic that there's no specificity around council needs to be sought by the library board to approve any capital expenses that have not been previously approved through the annual budget. So can we actually stop the library board from spending their current capital reserves?
To you, Councillor Kungle. So I'm not a lawyer, but I think the motion that passed doesn't necessarily ask them not to spend their funds. It was the policy piece, and if you are going to spend your funds, to come forward. I don't know. We'd have to do some research as to, how much control does council have on that piece of it. I think we probably have some more work to do, which we could probably do as part of the first part of that motion on the policy piece.
Okay, because I think it started as an inquiry, because I would say I would be asking a lot of questions about does this mean around access to my own funds if I was the board, versus what members of this council might have understood that they've just approved and whether or not that's actually going to happen in process. So I would my inquiry is really about legally, if they do not seek our approval, do they have to, and are we gatekeeping now? And then I guess it would be good for there to be disclosure about what we would deem to be previously approved capital expenses that we are expecting them to not have to come to us for approval for.
Sorry, if I can jump in. I think on the first one before we go to the second one. So I think, Mr. Miller, if you could provide notice back to council, working with Ms. Peters and our Chief Administrative Officer to clarify whether and how paragraph 2 can be implemented or interpreted if implementation is not able to take place. That would be something that I think Councillor Kungle would want to see back in writing.
I think so. I think it would be good to get clarity for all parties involved in this.
Beautiful. Now the second piece. Yeah.
So my other inquiry is, do we have a list, again, to add to disclosure, so there's clarity about what either entity believes has been or not been previously approved around capital expenses? I just don't know how we're going to interpret that.
So at this point, no, I don't have that list. But I think looking at the, hopefully the first part of that motion in working with the board to develop a policy that we can clarify what that list is, if there is such a list.
Thank you, that's helpful, because I guess I would say, we wouldn't want to assume that the public library board is operating, I'm sure they would want to be operating in the right intentions, knowing that we've just made the majority of council just supported this, so how are they going to operate within it?
Through you, Councillor Kungle, I don't see, I can't speak for the library board, but I don't necessarily see any change in how they're operating based on the motions at this point. I think the motion was directed towards a capital expenditure. I mean, if there is, at this point, we're not saying the council's not saying don't spend the money. They're saying if you have unallocated, if council hasn't approved your capital funds, bring it to council for consideration. That would be my interpretation of, I think it's framed around capital. That doesn't impact their operation at all at this point.
Okay. My other inquiry is specific to the drone show over the weekend, and knowing that there's quite a break, and again, unfortunately, because we don't have further time to add this as a motion, but if there is any, maybe through you, Mayor Nuttall, to CEO Prouse, if there is any information that we've got with respects to perhaps what that drone show or something like the one that we were viewing over the weekend could cost, and then I'm hoping to bring back a conversation in the fall to kind of see about what's the expense compared to fireworks? Would Canada Day be an option? And is there any information from, I think, that sponsor that supported the drone show that we could maybe get access to information if they deem it appropriate? So we could maybe look at a consideration for incorporating a drone or light show into one of our holidays would look like.
Mr. CEO, I'll jump in there because I know the matter intimately. Ms. Schlichter with Mr. Hay, Honorary Colonel Hay, organized the drone show to happen on Friday night. The two sponsors were Pratt Homes and then the Barn Burner. The total cost was $33,400, and it was about, I'm guessing, 12 minutes or something like that. I do think, I thought you were going to ask this question. I do think finding out the support for it versus fireworks is a good question to ask, and to get public feedback on it. So I know we can't do our poll, but we can certainly ask those who were present if they liked it on social and stuff. I saw nothing but positivity about it. I didn't see any negativity except for maybe missing a little bit of music or something.
So I guess I would say if I need to frame this as an inquiry, if staff are getting feedback or questions about it, it would be great to kind of hear about how that was received if we have an impression of that, because I think we did not get the motion passed around surveying the public about other options. But we'd like to see maybe in the fall where we've got time for consideration about looking at that as an example, and if there's merit to positioning something with a budget before we get into budget deliberations, whether it's a cost savings we can position or whether it's added cost depending on the duration of it.
Absolutely, Mr. CEO, if you can provide that.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Through to Councillor Kungle. Thank you for the question. The drone show, I think, actually was put on by the events team, just so the proper people get credit for it. But it certainly is a proof of concept for the City of Barrie. And now that we've done the first one, staff will do some work around, what worked, what didn't. I love the drone show if we're doing a straw poll, and I think it does unlock for the City of Barrie some opportunities about what we can do in the future. So for council, I would anticipate you'll get additional information back around that and other alternatives as we sort of move through the year.
Thank you. I guess last inquiry on that is, do you need, in the fall then when we're back, do you need a item for discussion around requesting direction of staff to bring that information back, or is that information we'll just naturally get as a report out?
Councillor Kungle, I think you'll get that information naturally as we go through the process. It may require another iteration to continue to fully form that information, but that is staff's expectation, and it was their plan when we went this route.
Appreciate it. Thank you. No more questions.
Wonderful. Any other inquiries? Seeing none. Announcements. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. This is more of a comment. I was able to attend the air show this weekend, and I wanted to thank staff. It's a huge event, and it takes a lot of effort. So I know Ashley from events and Miss Schlickler. It was just incredible, but it's a lot of work, and it was done extremely well, and I just wanted to thank them for putting on a great show. I know there's lots of partners, and I think they know and they've been thanked, but just activating the downtown, seeing all those people, it was great. So thank you to staff.
Councillor Kungle.
I have one announcement just for timing. I'm not sure if you're talking about it around the sports grant. Okay. So for those that maybe were not part of Finance Committee, we did identify that the Sport and Recreation Grant is now open. That's about, I think, $300,000. The intake is active. There are two components of that grant. One is for new community programming around events, and the other was around capital improvements. I do want to highlight the deadline for the grant application, which is online on the City of Barrie website, is July the 5th. But within that, I want to make sure people note July the 4th, the day before, is the cutoff for 2 citizen applications. So there is a process that was changed to allow 2 citizens to be considered for appointment to the adjudication panel. So I don't want residents to miss that opportunity. That's within the Sport and Rec Grant communication on the City of Barrie website. That is July 4th, not the 5th, for the application deadline to be a member of the panel.
Thank you so much, Councillor Kunkel. Councillor Corser.
Okay, let me gather my notes here. I have announcements in no particular order. This Sunday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Sunnydale Park, the Barrie Gardening Club is having their 150th anniversary celebration, and an afternoon of celebration, 150 years of their history and participation in the Barrie community, refreshments and giveaways will be there, and I'd love to see everybody out to that. That's going to be 150 years. Wow. Congratulations on that. And also, just to make sure I have everything together, June 30th, Youth Pride is being celebrated also at Sunnydale Park. New Path with New Path is doing Youth Pride June 30th at Sunnydale Park, with all proceeds going to Gilbert Center. There will be a barbecue. There will be vendors. I believe everything is the barbecue is paid by donation, and yeah, all proceeds will go to the Gilbert Center. And please allow me some patience. Thank you. Also, the Indigenous Workshop is happening at Sunnydale Park on June 24th, and that will be happening. It'll be a walk around the park, learning about Aboriginal, sorry about that, relationship to the land, hosted by Living Green. Invites you to participate in a free workshop in Indigenous stewardship approach to coexisting on the land. Join it, and it's Monday, June 24th, between 12 noon and 8 p.m. There'll be break for dinner between 4:30 and 5:30, so it's a pretty full day. Dorian Parker Center, Sunnydale Park, and Kids Creek are included. Join us as we learn together how Indigenous peoples cared for this land prior to settlement, learn spiritual connection and respect for the land while learning original custodial views and approaches, learn some history and cultural sensitivity training as well. It's a free event, but registration is required, so I would reach out to Living Green for registration on that. And I believe, and also on this Saturday, Firebird Community Cycle, in partnership with Living Green, is having a poker ride, bicycle poker ride. And open start time is at 3 to 5 p.m. As it's the social wrap, and afterwards there'll be a social wrap up at Hooligans. Where's this location? Oh, if you go to Living Green, Barrie, or a Firebird Cycle, I'm sure you'll get the information on that. And the email information on that is to contact them is pokerride, all one word, at firebirdcycle.ca. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corser. And Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just one last reminder. This Monday, June the 24th at 6:30 p.m. is our Ward 6 and 7 Town Hall. Obviously, myself and Councillor Negussi will be there, along with Mayor Nuttall, members of the Barrie Police, and then also from the city, we'll have people from staff from Service Barrie, the Planning Department, Bylaw, and also Waste Management. So 6:30 at the Peggy Hill, second floor community room.
Thank you, Councillor. I will be a little late there, Councillor, as I'm coaching 10-year-olds just out the window from where we're holding it. So I'm going to be about 15 minutes after we start there.
That's good. We'll leave all the hard questions at the beginning to Councillor Negussi.
Or just make sure there's some donuts left. That's all I ask for. We have some other announcements. The City of Barrie reminds residents that there have been changes to yard waste collection. Yard waste materials curbside by 7 a.m. on regular collection day of yard waste. the alternate to garbage collection week. Yard waste will be collected before the end of the day on Friday. Yard waste collection occurs every other week from April to November. For information or more information, please visit barrie.ca/yard waste collection. Pollinator Week is being recognized between the 17th of June and 23rd of June 2024. Pollinator Week is an annual event celebrated across the world in support of pollinator health. For further information or a list of activities, please visit barrie.ca/bcity. Nominations are being accepted for the 2024 Barrie Arts Awards until August the 26th, 2024. The awards honor individuals and organizations for their contributions to the arts sector. Winners will be celebrated at the annual gala in the fall. For further information or to submit a nomination, please visit barrie.ca/arts awards. Starting on June 28th, lifeguards will be on duty at Centennial and Johnson's Beach. Residents are reminded to practice water safety, stay within arm's reach, swim with a buddy, and get trained. For further information, please visit barrie.ca/beaches. Before I move to the last announcement, there's two things I wanted to cover off, and I want to echo Deputy Mayor Thompson. I think I had nothing but positive response to the air show this weekend, to Stephanie and your team, to our communications team that was constantly pushing out what was happening, to Base Borden, who brought in obviously some vehicles so people could go and look at them, be inside them, see what it's like to be inside them. The support from the County of Simcoe, allowing us to use the airport out there, the base support for the air show overall. It was, quite frankly, the best run events I've seen on our waterfront. Everything seemed to be very well organized. Folks were literally everywhere, where at least down at Heritage Park and Kempenfelt. And the garbage around the waterfront, when I was there both days, seemed to be getting picked up and not left to, in a disrespectful way on our waterfront. So I want to say thank you to every single person who was involved in that, and certainly to our Rec and Culture team who implemented all of that over the weekend. It certainly did showcase to both our citizens here and citizens outside, I believe, the best the city has had to offer. The second thing I wanted to outline is stay tuned for tomorrow. I believe as council, we've received correspondence that raises some alarm bells on the state of our downtown. And there's some very positive announcements coming over the next little while. The first of which is tomorrow. It's not our announcement to make, or I would say it, but it's one that's going to be a game changer for the City of Barrie, and one that we're going to be very, very thankful for. And the fact that we're attracting this type of announcement, I'll call it right now, into our downtown is something that I think says a lot about the future of our city and the future of our downtown. So please do stay tuned for that announcement tomorrow morning, and it'll be a very good one. Finally, before we move to bylaws, this is the last City Council meeting before August the 14th, 2024. So I want to wish everybody a happy and healthy summer. Hope that everyone gets a chance to recharge, and I'm sure we'll all be constantly talking, communicating about things that are going on, but I do want to wish you and your families a wonderful, wonderful summer. Deputy Mayor, the bylaws.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton. Leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Bills 63 to 69.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bills 063 to 069. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? I'm seeing none. All those in favor? It carries. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton. Leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Bill 70.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be ready first, second, and third time this day, and finally passed. Bill 70. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton. Leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Bill 71.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be ready first, second, and third time this day, and finally passed. Bill 71. Are there any questions or comments regarding Bill 71? Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Negussi, that Bill 71 be amended by the following. That paragraph 9 in Bill 71 concerning a zoning bylaw amendment be amended to delete the following words, along Brown Bear Street.
It's moved by Councillor Harvey and seconded by Councillor Negussi that Bill 71 be amended by the following. The paragraph 9 in Bill 71 concerning a zoning bylaw amendment be amended to delete the following words, quote, along Brown Bear Street, end quote. Are there any questions or comments with regards to this amendment? Seeing none, it's just bringing it in line with the previous amendments earlier in terms of the City Council meeting. All those in favor? It passes. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton. Leave be granted.
Sorry, you know what? I'm going to go back because that was an amendment. We're now going to go to the main motion on Bill 71. Any other questions or comments on the main motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton. Leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Bill 72 to 78.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be ready first, second, and third time this day, and finally passed. Bills 072 to 078. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Moved by myself, second. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Hamilton. Leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill will be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. The confirmation bylaw, Bill 79.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. With regards to confirmation bylaw, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be ready first, second, and third time this day, and finally passed. Bill 79. Are there any questions or comments with regards to the confirmation bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? It carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn? It's moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Negussi. All those in favor of adjournment? It's approved at